Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Lysha from Lysha Be Creative and I'm back with yet another tumbler tutorial and we're going to do this peekaboo style dreamer and star tumbler. Of course I'm going to show you how I put this together and we're going to be using some glow in the dark vinyl from Teckwrap Craft. So of course everything that I use in today's video will of course be listed and linked down below, as well as some discount codes to save you some money. Be sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, but let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to, of course, start off with all of the prep work we need to get our cup ready to be spray painted. So I'm using 30-ounce tumbler from Hog, and we're going to go ahead and take off this little blue and metallic circle off the bottom, and then, of course, we'll get into sanding this to scuff up the surface. So my sanding process is always the same. I use anywhere between a 60 and 80 grit sanding block just to be able to scuff up and remove the shine from the stainless steel tumblers and make sure that I'm able to get a nice scuffed up surface to be able to get the paint and epoxy and everything else I'm going to be adding to this to adhere to the cup better. So after I'm done sanding, just scuffing up the surface, I'm going to clean this with a little bit of 91% rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, removing all of the dust and debris from the sanding block. That way we can take this to go be spray painted. So we are going to start with a neon base for this tumbler design, and I wanted to show you this really cool hack and trick that I actually learned from Chrissy Allen, Chrissy's Creations. She's Chrissy Allen 84 on TikTok. She showed this really easy and simple hack to create a neon tumbler with 3 colors. So I'm starting with Rustoleum Seaside, and I'm going to spray paint almost 3/4 of this cup, okay? And so you guys can see I still have the same ratchet setup for my spray painting. My lazy season is coming. I just have yet to break that out and get that set up. But anyway, after I've done spray painting that, I'm gonna go in with a fluorescent pink, so a neon pink spray paint, and I'm going to spray paint over the stainless steel section, like half of that stainless steel section, and into the blue. So where I spray paint over the Seaside Rustoleum color is then going to pick up and represent my purple color, okay? So the third and final section, which is open here, this is all going to be a neon yellow. And so when I put the neon yellow by itself, of course, it's going to be just neon yellow, but over the pink, it creates the orange, and over the blue, that's where you get the green. So really quick, simple, and easy, cute hack. I really thought that this came in really handy, really easy, because I don't know about you guys, it's so hard to get a really even amount of each color spray paint when you're doing multiple coats, multiple colors of spray paint, and getting them all to kind of do what you want them to. So I thought that was pretty fun. I'll definitely list Chrissy's handle on TikTok down in the description box down below in case you'd like to follow her. She always has some really cool cups and things that I love watching her stuff. So definitely check her out on TikTok. So now we are on to, of course, the process of getting our cup glittered. So we're going to use the entire neon bundle from my Asia Creations, which I'll show you in a minute. And we're going to apply the glitter using the epoxy method. So I've mixed up just a little bit of epoxy here. I think I have a little bit more than I need because I did end up putting the rest of it on a cup I had on the tumbler. But I'm just using a regular set epoxy. So my go-to, of course, is Flynn Sisters Artist Cure for doing epoxy method. You could use a fast set. I typically just do a regular artist cure because I usually wait another day before I put this under epoxy anyway. So I just felt like it was an opportunity in time to just use the artist cure. But if you are quick enough, you certainly can use a fast setting epoxy to adhere your glitter. Usually I do, just in this case, we went with artist cure just to make sure that I could get all the colors laid and get this extra epoxy onto a cup that was already on my turner. So once I'm done thoroughly mixing, and of course that takes anywhere from, 5 minutes or so, and really what you're looking for is you're really trying to ensure that there's no ribbons in your epoxy and that everything is thoroughly mixed. Bubbles don't really matter here when you were doing this sort of method, just because you're not going to see any of that on the cup because we're putting such a thin amount of the epoxy on the actual cup. And the goal here really is to use less than 2 ml of epoxy all over this entire cup. So you'll really see me kind of really dragging slowing my hand down and really just trying to get the entire cup covered in epoxy. But of course, I don't want too much epoxy because I want my epoxy to really kind of remain stuck to the cup and at any point in time not sort of pool or do any sort of dripping. If you have that, then you definitely have too much epoxy on your cup. So I typically start in most cases with 5 ml of epoxy, and I'll use less than half of that in order to put a thin coat of epoxy on my cup for the epoxy method glitter application. Biggest tips for me when I'm doing this is always be sure to make sure your entire cup is coated in epoxy. Definitely pay attention to your rims. That's typically where the struggle is when it comes to epoxy method glitter application, is getting that epoxy to really stretch thin over those sort of edges and not leave any bare spots. So we are going to start with our glowing pineapple color. These are all kind of fine cuts of glitter, and I have used them in previous tutorials, but I'll list them off certainly as we go through them. So I'm starting with glowing pineapple, which is the yellow here, and I'm not really going to be doing, or be able to do, I should say, a whole lot of blending on this cup because these are all the same cut of glitter. It's a little bit hard to blend multiple colors like this in that vertical fashion with one cut of glitter. You guys know that if I am going to do a really, ombre of some sorts, I like to pick different cuts of the same colors or, similar colors in order to help the blending process. But because this is going to be a peekaboo, I'm okay if these don't all look completely blended because it's going to be, most of it will be hidden under the peekaboo anyway. You're not going to tell that it wasn't a perfectly blended ombre to start. So that color we just did was papaya. I'm now going to go into my hot pink color, which is majestic flamingo, filling in my pink section here. And then with each of the colors, I'm kind of just putting a little bit on the bottom. All of the colors are on the bottom, but it's not like a perfect swirl. So I'm just making sure to glitter the butt of the cup with just adding a little bit of each of the glitters onto the bottom as I go. After I'm done with majestic flamingo, we're going to go in with the purple. I'm kind of just going around the cup in the order of the colors as they come up. So this is flaming sapphire, the neon purple that was part of this bundle from my Asia Creations. I will, of course, will list all the glitters down below in the description box. That way you guys can go check those out and use my discount code to save yourself a little money as well. Next up is our blue, and our blue is glimmering heather. We're gonna then squeeze in this little bit of blue there, of course, add a little bit to the bottom. And then our very final color on this neon swirl, I suppose we could call it, we are going to go in with the green, which is parakeet. So I made sure to just get kind of full coverage of each of the colors as I went, so I didn't have to go back in and touch up anything. And once I'm done with the glittering process, I typically will just let it sit for a little bit of time, a couple hours or so, and then I usually take it to the trash can and tap off any of the excess like you see me doing here, but I do that again over the trash can before I let it sit to fully cure, 4 hours or so, and then I will take that and spray seal it so the colors don't sort of touch each other when I epoxy, and put it under a couple coats of epoxy. So we're now into the Cricut Design Space portion of this tutorial. And so this stars and sort of offset that I got, this is from Bear Trends Digi Designs. So it is an actual pattern that she created. I will list that down in the description box as well. I am going to add a Dreamer decal, which was not part of the original design and decal. And I just used a font that was already in Cricut Design Space. That actually might be just one that's already on my Mac, like one of those basic ones. It was like Bernard Condensed MT, something like that. I'll list that down in the description box. But with this, I just typed out the word Dreamer. I made sure that it was going to fit the length of my cup, making sure it was under that 9-inch mark. And I went ahead and then created an offset at 0.50. I'll list that down in the description box too, to make sure I could be able to have that offset. So all of the inner decals will be cut with blue stencil vinyl from Oracle, and then everything else is going to be using this, actually writes on the screen right here, this glow in the dark vinyl from teckwrap. So what I'm showing you right here is my last sort of batch of teckwrap craft vinyl. They sent me some great sticker paper, which I'm really excited to use, and some rolls of vinyl that I will also be including in some of my future tutorials. But I just wanted to kind of sneak this clip in here because it wasn't something that I actually had an opportunity to share on on social media yet, and I wanted to show you some of the things that hopefully are upcoming. I, of course, will list all of the vinyl that I showed here and the sticker paper down in the description box as well, in case you're looking to pick those items up before I sort of feature them on the channel. So we are back to the cup here. And this cup now has 2 coats of epoxy on it. I did use Flynn Sisters Fast Cure in order to get this kind of done rather quickly, just a couple coats over that raw glitter, and this was nice and smooth. And all the sanding we'll have to do is just the standing over the top rim, of course. So now, of course, we're going to add our stencil decals. So all of the blue will be what goes down first. That way we can spray paint over that. You can use removable vinyl if you would prefer to do so. I typically like stencil vinyl just because I like the way it removes after I spray paint the cup. It just removes like in one piece and I don't have to kind of pick at it. But you certainly could use removable vinyl as well. Ironically, this cup is actually a remake. So a couple tutorials ago, I actually made this cup. However, I did not have stencil vinyl in my collection of vinyl. I was out of it. And so I tried to use a piece of removable vinyl that I probably have had since I started crafting. And it was not a good choice because it did not remove, it did not peel up. So now the original cup of this design is now sitting in the strip pile to be stripped because I can't even get the vinyl back up. So be mindful with what vinyl you're using. Certainly, if you didn't already know, now you know, vinyl does go bad apparently after some time. So just be mindful with that. It was something that was a hard lesson for me because I really loved how the original cup came out, but a little bit of a hard lesson. And now a cup that I have to strip, of course, and add to the strip pile. So all I'm doing here, of course, is adding all of the stars. Now, you could add this as one full piece, but because I inserted the word Dreamer as my sort of main decal, I needed to do this in sections to make the stars closer together because this is size for a 30-ounce tumbler all the way around, and I wouldn't be able to fit that all the way around with the word on there because of the way that these were spaced. So that's why I did it in sections versus using one piece of transfer tape and applying it all at the same time, because I added the large decal on the center part of the cup. So all of this is applied. We're gonna now head on over after we're done applying the stencils to the spray paint booth once again, because we gotta get this spray painted and ready to get those stencil decals removed. So we are using 2 colors here. I'm using an icy blue color that I have from Krylon, and then of course a flat black. So I'm going in first with my icy blue color from Krylon to be the base of the cup, and then we're going to go over this with the flat black spray paint. The reason why I'm doing 2 colors versus just doing the black is because I want to not only have a peekaboo, but we are going to add a little bit of distressing. And with that distressing, I want to be able to have a second color underneath to really just enhance the look of distressing. If you've ever tried to distress just a tumbler that was, you know, the peekaboo was black, it doesn't really look super like rustic and like really distressed. It kind of just looks like there's spots missing. So when you add a color underneath your top color, whatever color you want that to be, and you distress that with your alcohol and acetone, you really get a really nice, like almost like acid wash kind of look, kind of like that really rubbed over and scuffed over look, which is what I wanted to go for with the distressing here. So after the spray paint section and session, I let this literally dry for probably 30 to 40 minutes, probably a couple hours before I got back to it, honestly. And then we're back to remove all of the stencil decals here. So just removing those with my little dental pick tool, which is literally my go-to weeding tool. Be careful, of course, as I always mention with peekaboos, you want to go slow, take your time, because you don't want to scratch or scuff up your paint. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt to have to try and touch up any of those scratch marks. So now that we have of course, the stencils removed, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the distressing that I was talking about. So for the distressing here, I have acetone in the blue capped bottle and regular 91% rubbing alcohol in the purple capped bottle. And so I'm going to distress the top and bottom edges first before I do any of the distressing in the middle section of the cup. So the one thing about peekaboos, which I know sometimes stumps a couple people up and can be really frustrating, is when you're doing a peekaboo, you really need a smooth cup in order to make sure that you get a really kind of nice final product where you don't see any of those bumps or pieces of glitter sticking up through your layers of paint. And so for anybody who struggles with their top rim or bottom rim being super like bump free and really smooth, this is a great technique to include in your peekaboos with a little bit of distressing. I like to distress around the entire rim on the top and the bottom in case there's any issues or situations or places where it's not completely smooth. I don't want that paint to pick up that sort of abnormality or those lumps and bumps and things. And so I just kind of distress that section. That way I don't have to stress so much about having such a really smooth bottom and top rim. Of course, sanding will help, but when you're using chunkier glitters, of course, for your glitter, it does get a little bit difficult to really get that sand down super smooth without having like 20 pounds of epoxy on your cup, right? So all I do with my distressing is I do a combination of acetone and alcohol, and that is what pulls out the underneath color. You want a little bit more alcohol than you want acetone because that really scrubbing that top layer of paint is going to bring out the edges of the undercolor paint you have there, and then go over it with alcohol just to sort of make sure there's no cloudiness on your glittered sections. So I did another distressing tumbler a while back, so I will definitely include that down in the description box as well. So we now have the Dreamer decal. So I have not done anything else with my cup other than done the distressing. You normally would put this back under the on the turner for another coat of epoxy, but I like to skip steps. If I can get away with skipping steps, I will skip a step. I will skip an epoxy step if I can. If you don't feel confident in doing this, or you're worried that your paint will be peeled up with your transfer tape, I definitely would encourage you to do another coat of epoxy. I like to skip a couple steps, save myself a little bit of time, and go right into adding the decals that are going to go on top here. So I started with the offset for the Dreamer in the center of the cup. So I laid the D by itself since it was separate from the rest of the lettering. All of these letters here are completely connected to one another, so I kind of had to try and do them all in one shot. You are, though, going to see me cut between the A and the M because things started to go on a little bit crooked and it wasn't going to go on the cup or on the lettering the way it needed to. So I did have to slice through that small section between the A and the M to release that section in order to place that and the rest of the word by itself to make sure it was going to go on the way I needed it to. When you look dead on at the cup, it is slightly off, but honestly, you can't really tell unless you're looking for it. I did get it pretty close, but it is slightly off from where it was. And a way to avoid that too would just be to make sure that the spacing between your letters, there's a little bit of a gap there, even if it's a tiny gap. Enough for you to be able to get a pair of scissors in there and slice those sections to make it a little bit easier to apply the offset section around the decal. So now that I've gotten that applied, of course, going to remove that transfer tape, and then the next portion of this is going to be adding sort of the offset of the stars that came with this digital file. So all you're going to do is you're just going to take that and it's going to be lined up on one side. So obviously all of these are for the right side of the star, and I'm just going through and just using my craft knife to apply them. You could use transfer tape if you wanted. I always find that it's a little bit easier for me to do it this way. I'm able to get them placed rather quickly, and that was kind of it. So now that this is ready, we're going to do one more step before it goes back on the turner. So I always like to seal these kinds of vinyls. Anything that's holographic, washi tape, anything that I fear could potentially lift during the epoxy process or potentially give me a super hard time in the epoxy process, I will seal these types of vinyls with polyacrylic. So I use the Minwax Satin or Gloss polyacrylic. Comes in the little green cans. That is what I use and what is in this bottle with the red top here to seal my vinyl. Let that sort of dry for 30-ish minutes, and then it's ready to go back on the turner for a coat of epoxy. So we're back on the turner, and we're going to do our first of 2 final coats of epoxy, of course. And so all I'm doing here is mixing up 30 mLs of Flint Sisters Artist Cure epoxy here, and giving this a really good coat all the way around. I now am going to add and drop in a little bit of some extra glitter. Talking to the Moon is a glitter from my Asia Creations. It's got hearts, stars, some hexagon pieces, and I just really felt like it went with the whole sort of aesthetic of the stars and the dreamer kind of vibe that was this cup. And so I decided to just take a little bit of that, a pinch or so of that, and just kind of spread that around some of the black background around the stars and around the word dreamer. Just felt like it added a little bit so that when you're looking at it dead on, you can really see sort of all those cute hearts and stars here. Obviously, as much or as little as you want to add is completely up to you. But of course, after that, I let that cure, did one more final coat, and here is the final results of this cup. Now remember, this is a glow-in-the-dark cup, so all of the vinyl that I added that was teckwrap craft does glow, which I absolutely love, so I snapped a picture for that here. Came out so cute. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and of course, if you loved it, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, click that bell so that you're notified when I post videos every Tuesday and Saturday. I'll see you guys soon.